I wish I had learned this truth many years ago. Be thankful for the days, good and bad.
All right, welcome to another episode of Warrior vs. Zombie. And as always, I have an amazing warrior guest for you, Peter Wright. But I'll introduce him in a second. Let me remind you of why you're here. Success is a journey, it's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses that are all part of making us who we are up to this point, and they provide a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombie, as well as those zombies in our world. And in each episode, I interview warriors who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life. Entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, literally any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These warriors have a cause, they have unique value, and a vision that goes generations into the future, and today's guest is no exception. Peter Wright is an awesome warrior. He's a husband, a realtor, an entrepreneur, a networker, a foodie, and a sports enthusiast. His 30-plus year warrior journey began in Berkeley, California. I won't hold that against you. And has taken him to many major metropolitan areas across the U.S., where he ultimately landed in DFW. Peter and his family have lived in the DFW area for the last 19 years. His career in sales and marketing and his experience in buying and selling his own properties have provided a foundation for his current focus as a realtor. His journey of client service and various marketing and management roles are what drives Peter's real estate consultancy, and his passion for homes, home improvement, and his vision for what could be are values that he brings to the table. Peter believes anything is possible, and he is laser focused on delivering his clients' dreams. I love that. I always talk about dreams and wars. So Peter, you're very aligned with this audience in this podcast. In his ideal day, Peter enjoys preparing gourmet meals for family and friends and rooting for his favorite sports teams. And now we're going to have a problem. San Francisco 49ers. By the way, if you can't tell, I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and I'm still in celebration mode. And the Chelsea Football Club. I've actually just started with the World Cup and stuff like that. I actually just started getting into soccer, and my son lives in Austin, and they're an Austin FC fans, and so they're always wanting to watch that. And his new wife is European, so have some fun there. And he shares his Richardson, Texas home with his wife of 30 years, Pam, and his loyal dog, Omar. Peter Wright, welcome to Warrior vs. Zombie. How are things over in your side of town today?
Dave, it's great. It's a beautiful day here in DFW. Thank you for the great introduction. Yes, we do seem to be on opposite sides of the fence when it comes to the NFL, but hey, that's okay. I'm kind of grounded in the NFC. You're kind of grounded in the AFC. So congrats.
Yeah.
I was actually rooting for the Chiefs. So
good for
happy
you.
for you. Yeah. But yeah,
you probably weren't rooting for them in Super Bowl 54 when they were playing San Francisco, though. So
yeah, I have to say no, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry about the outcome. But,
yes, I don't blame you there either. So the funny thing is, really, I have a lot of fun with it. My love for the Chiefs and Kansas City goes from the fact that that's where I grew up, right? You were in Berkeley, you were in that part of the world, and so those teams are affinity, and I don't get so wrapped into it that it's kind of funny. I know people that are so into their sports teams, and that's one of the reasons why nobody likes Philadelphia. I say nobody likes Philadelphia, but Philadelphia generally is not one that people tend to have warm feelings about, because their fans are so annoying and so dispensive of normal human behavior when it comes to rooting for their team. So I love everybody first, and then if you're rooting for the Chiefs, we can have a party, and if you're not rooting for the Chiefs, I love you anyway. So we, and I'll if you win, I'll help you celebrate as best I can. And if I win, then you can celebrate with me if you want. So that's okay. So, and I don't really win because I'm not playing. I'm just cheering. So it
Right.
goes back. One of the things when we get into your story, actually, my love for it goes back to my dad. Goes back to when I was very young, and they won the what was the fourth Super Bowl, the Super Bowl IV. It wasn't really Super Bowl at that point. I think it was whatever they called it at that point. But that was the only win that Kansas City had until 54. So 50 years later. So for us, it was a long time coming, and my dad has passed, but I know he was celebrating in heaven too. So it's kind of a fun thing. So anyway, anything else going on in your world, in the world of real estate, or the things you're dealing with today? Any excitement, challenges, exciting or unusual things?
Yeah, actually, certainly the marketplace across the country and the economy and interest rates having increased in the last part of last year is challenging. And, things have been a little bit different than the first part of 2022, where the market was just extremely robust. But
Yeah.
we live in a good place, actually. We live in a robust market that has a strong economy. We have a lot of people moving here to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so, although there was a slight kind of flattening of the business in Q4 last year with interest rates rising, I think people now have come to expect where the rates are. Buyers are starting to get back out there. Sellers are starting to get back out there. In fact, right after this, I'm going to head over to Allen, Texas, where I'm going to be activating my new listing. Nice. If anybody wants to move to Allen, let me know. I've got a house going active today. Nice
That's
3-bedroom,
exciting.
2-bath. Yeah, so that's very exciting. I have another one coming up, shortly in another community in the DFW area, working with a couple of buyers. It's a great day. Spring's coming, so I'm really encouraged by what I see in kind of a little bit of an uptick in the marketplace here. So yeah, in terms of a realtor in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I'm super pumped and ready to get back out there and get going for 2023.
Well, I love it. And I know you being part of our Warrior networking community here in the local area, um, and seeing people migrating from the left coast out here from where you used to hang out, I'm sure that there's going to continue to be opportunity. I think Texas and Florida in particular are seeing such a net inflow that even if the overall national economy or inflation, whatever, interest rates, things that are kind of the tide is going up or down in any of those areas, it's pretty clear that we are still, the best. Maybe we may be the smartest kids in special ed. That's not a pejorative. I'm just saying we may have the best of the worst, but still it is a positive thing. And you're right. We'll talk about more of kind of some of the things you're doing today. We get into the third segment, but let's do this. Let's take a quick break. Want to hear a little for the audio audience of our theme song, "It's Not the Getting There" by Ricky Jean Wright. And we'll be right back with Peter Wright and Warrior versus Zombie.
But the miles become the teacher while the student learns real slow, traveling blind most of the time. Wherever you go, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see.
All right, we are back. Peter, good check-in. Glad to hear you're really excited about the real estate market right now. I'd be kind of scared to have you as a real estate agent if you weren't all full of what's going on in the real estate market right now. But I want to hear less about that right now, and I want to hear a little bit of your story. You shared with our Warrior networking community yesterday, actually. And by the way, I appreciate you jumping in, being a Warrior guest. This is something that I really love to do is share stories and stuff of the Warriors in my networking community with our audience in places where maybe they people don't know who Peter Wright is. So tell me, how did you get from where you started? And I have a lot of stories, so you get to pick where you started to what kind of got you to where you are today.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I'll start kind of in my beginning, and my beginning does start in Berkeley, California. And really, a lot of my background, inspiration, values come from my parents. My dad actually was in the real estate industry as a career. Um, True inspiration. He was a Tuskegee Airman. Luckily for me, he was in the class of 45, which ended late in the year. The war was over, so he didn't go overseas. But he really taught me a lot in terms of resilience, leadership, service, and so those have always been my values growing up, and have retained those as I've gone on throughout my career. From Berkeley, growing up there, going to school, ended up going east for college to Columbia University. Had a great experience in 4 years in New York. It established a great kind of educational platform, and I think skill set for me to take to my first job. My first job coming out of college was at Home Box Office, where I worked in sales and marketing, and kind of at a great time in the cable industry. Provided me with solid background that then I chose to layer on another educational experience, and I went off and got my MBA at Northwestern University, focused in marketing, and that really kind of led me into my long marketing career. About 30 years of marketing, where I started in packaged goods at SC Johnson Wax, followed by experiences in an internet startup, online grocery company. I also was a director of marketing up at Starbucks and moved up to Seattle. From Seattle, actually moved here to the DFW area to take a role as the director of marketing for the Chili's restaurant chain. And then following that, had about 10 years with a media platform company that had print and digital called Velasas. But you've talked about a little bit about it being a journey, and yeah, in my journey, I've had some hurdles, and actually some of those hurdles are losing my job. And most recently at Velasas, I lost my job during COVID, and I really made a decision that I wanted to maybe go in a different direction, go utilize all of the learning that I've had from my marketing experience, and use those skill sets for maybe a little bit bigger purpose. And that's why I decided to jump into the real estate world, where I thought I could help people.
That's so you've hit on a few things along the way there. One of is your heritage in terms of your father being in the Tuskegee Airmen and those kinds of things. And obviously, at that time in our history, there was a lot of challenges. There was a lot of things. And it's not that there's not challenges along the journey for everybody every day, but it sounds like so when you started into your journey and had that some of the challenges or zombies of race or
Mhm.
family history, there, however you want to characterize that. Um, what kinds of mindset things or what kinds of things did you find that you've moved through to then take the next step into going across the country, I mean, obviously it sounds like you had some possibilities ahead. Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. And I've never wanted to allow race to be a detriment to me. I certainly have recognized over the course of time that it can be a challenge.
Hmm.
Purely just, all right, as I introduce myself and you see me, as somebody that maybe looks different than you.
Hmm.
And so certainly I have felt like that it was an opportunity for me to engage people and treat people fairly, treat people
Hmm.
equally, to approach life in a manner that I became approachable. Um, I also felt as if, okay, if people were going to see me differently, And if people were going to try to judge me based on that, or it was something that potentially I had to overcome, then I always challenged myself to be on a leadership path. I
Hmm.
always challenged myself to try and be better. Maybe it was, a hurdle in that I put such a high expectation, in order to think that I needed to be successful in whatever environment that I faced, maybe my own personal, disappointment of maybe I didn't feel like I lived up to my own expectations, but I did feel like that I owed that to myself. I owed
Hmm.
that to my family. I owed that to my culture. And so, like at Columbia, for example, I decided and again challenged myself to really think about how could I make a bigger impact. And so I, really brought a collection of people together,
Hmm.
and I ran for student government and ended up being junior class president and then senior class president of my class. And actually, I was the first African American senior class president in Columbia's history.
Beautiful.
It's 230 years, at that
Hmm.
stage, history. And so it's opportunities that I see them as opportunities where I can make a positive impact in an environment, to be that collaborative type of individual, both personally and professionally, that will hopefully overcome any of those issues that maybe exist. And you're right, there is still things that challenge our country in terms of race. But I feel like that one role that I can play is to be an individual that, champions a inclusive culture,
Hmm.
and hopefully through what I do and the way people see me, they will be in a mindset that is much more collaborative.
Well, you know what, Peter, I got to tell you, and I'm saying this with all honesty, and there's a lot of times I talk to guests and I really don't necessarily know them that well. I don't have a lot of experience, but because you're in my warrior community, I can tell you that there's no way today people look at you and see race first because of who you are and those kinds of things. And the reality of it is, the thing that is most disturbing to me, and I'm just gonna, this is not a political podcast, so but we're warriors, and warriors are about overcoming challenges, and we have challenges in today's world. But you know what? We're going to have challenges in tomorrow's world, and we had challenges. I mean, you overcame a huge zombie of, well, nobody's ever done that before, so you made the decision that you were going to do it. And you know, because success is about overcoming challenges. I mean, if you use your challenges as an entrepreneur or as a student or as a human being as an excuse for not doing what you're capable of doing, then it's not on the challenge, it's on you. um, if you use the challenge as saying, okay, I don't care, I'm going to beat it, that's how you become somebody who makes a difference. That's what the definition of a warrior. And you described in your own story, in your own way, the definition of a warrior. You chose, and that's the key, intentionality. You chose not to allow that attribute, whatever it might be. And it's not just race. You know, we have people in our network, as you know, that they have physical limitations, whether it's age or health condition, or one of our warrior guests, Robbie. I'm trying to think. I drew a blank on his last name. Doesn't matter. You can find him on a previous episode. He has a stutter, and it's endemic. It's been his whole life, and you could say, and he's now won all kinds of awards as a professional speaker. But if you listen to the podcast, he still stutters. But you know what? Because you can't change your melanin, you can't change your skin color. So you just got to decide, as you obviously have, what you just said in your own words, is you decided that wasn't going to be a limiting factor. You were going to do it. And you not only view yourself that way, but you view others that way. And I love that about you.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, and I guess it may be a little bit of a cliche kind of
Mm-hmm.
statement, but you can't allow yourself to be the victim.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll tell you an example of it in the context of business. As I mentioned just briefly in our first segment, in my marketing career, I lost my role 3 times
Mm-hmm.
due to layoffs. And the first time that it happened, um, it was new, it was different. I had always, virtually always succeeded at everything that I had
Mm-hmm.
done. And so it was a wake up call. And I did start to go down that path of, potentially being a victim. And I was
Mm-hmm.
embarrassed, because at that time, it wasn't like today where it happens, I guess, more frequently. And I kind of went into a shell. And I will never forget what one recruiter told me that kind of snapped me out of this. And he said, "Hey, look, Peter, you're looking for a job, and you've got to go out and sell yourself. And here's what you should do. I don't care whether it is the garbage man or the CEO. You've got to tell every single person that you're looking for a job." And that really stuck with me and that really shocked me because it communicated that, in this grand scheme of network, right, anybody could potentially be connected to somebody, know somebody, or them themselves be able to help you. And so that really stuck with me. And I've kind of, we'll go on to talk a little bit about what I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing,
Sure.
later, but that stuck with me, as well, to say, hey, you can't go into a shell. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to overcome those zombies, right? And the zombie for me then was a layoff. And
Mm-hmm.
you've got to kind of challenge yourself. And I kind of re-engaged. And the back 2/3 of my successful marketing career wouldn't have happened if I had gone into that shell and quit. And so, I do actually credit that recruiter with giving me that advice because it really kind of jump started my job search, which led to my job at Starbucks and then
Mm-hmm.
future into Chili's and onward.
Really, Peter, what you just shared and that nugget is brilliant beyond, I think, even what you really understand, because what you said was you defined yourself in a way, and we all get into our zombie mindset, and we become defined by what we do every day,
Mm.
and we become defined by who we see in the mirror every day, and we start to say your zombie mind, which isn't your mind of intention, it isn't your frontal lobe, it's your mind of, it's actually there, God created us that way to protect us, to keep us from things that are painful or hurtful. So when you have hurt in your growing up, or you have hurt in your career, especially guys, by the way, this isn't a
Yeah.
male female thing, but unfortunately, or fortunately, however the reality is that we define ourselves by what we do. And I can tell you, the word I use is devastating. The first time and understand, I was ranked at the top of a large corporation. Not going to get all the details, but and I walked in, and the boss said, "Oh, we're having a downsizing, and oh, by the way, can you have your desk cleaned out by the end of the month, or by the end of the day? And if you don't find another position in the company in 6 weeks, thank you very much." And it wasn't a thing. It just happened. And that, you talk about PTSD and then the ability to overcome that. People are going through stuff. I'm sure you're seeing it even in the real estate. There's still people with PTSD. I happen to be one of them that lost millions of dollars in the 2008 downturn that affect their decision making in the real estate market. So, as warriors, we recognize what things are. We have to make conscious and intentional decisions to move forward. And you obviously did that. Well, let's do this. I really want to, I know you're chomping at the bit because we started out. I know you want to talk about real estate and kind of what you're doing today. And I know that this is kind of you described it. You're remaking. You've remade yourself. You're now focused on something. And from what I can tell, in the 3 years that I've seen you around, or the time of that I've seen you around, you're really making a lot of progress, and I love your warrior spirit as you go through that. So I want to hear more about that. So let's take another quick break. We'll hear a little more of Ricky Jean Wright and our theme song, It's Not the Getting There. And we'll be right back with Peter Wright and Warrior versus Zombie.
It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. Funny how wisdom and youth are always two different games.
All right, Peter. Well, we're going to have fun. I knew we would, and again, I appreciate you jumping in here and we can get your story out there, and I think see nothing but excitement going forward. So, tell me about what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing today.
Absolutely. COVID hit, and I was in my last marketing role, and initially got furloughed, in that role. And so it gave me a little bit of opportunity to think, what did I want to do? Ultimately in that job, I lost it and was laid off. And so there was some soul searching, was happening. And as I've mentioned, I had a 30-year career and worked on some great brands. If I go back and kind of look at the history of my marketing experience with, being brand manager on Glade and Raid and Pledge and working at Starbucks and Chili's, I mean, just fantastic brands. And I really felt like at that stage that I had achieved, all I really wanted to achieve in the marketing world. And so I set my sights on something different, and where I could maybe have an impact and succeed and enjoy. And so cumulatively, I started thinking about, okay, I have all these experience. I have a lot of marketing experience. I did a lot of contract negotiating in my roles throughout marketing. I already had some knowledge of the real estate industry because, as I mentioned earlier, my dad was a realtor and then a real estate appraiser. And, when I was a little kid, I used to sometimes go with him to, look at houses. And so I really, kind of had that in my background. And I thought that I had the right mindset and personality to become a realtor. And so in 2020, I started studying for a real estate license here in Texas, took the exam, got my license, and off I went. I worked, throughout the North Texas area as a realtor. I worked for Century 21 Mike Bowman. Very happy with my company and where I work and with my broker. And at the end of the day, the way in which I look at it is that I am out to help people. Um, People have a lot of different challenges in the real estate industry, be it on the buying side or the selling side. They may be aspirational and want that special house that they've always had their eye on, or a second house at the lake. They may be selling to downsize. They may be selling because financially they have to do it, and they need that capital to go forward in their life. Or it may be as simple as, hey, you know what, I just need some information on mortgage loans, or I need information about a particular vendor that I need, a painter, electrician, etc. I really want to be the one-stop shop person that can help
Mm-hmm.
that individual regardless of their need. Obviously, my goal is to be successful and to have a successful financial career within this, and therefore that means, selling and buying houses or helping people with that. But if I can do that as well as help people with other questions, Actually, Don Sprague, yesterday asked, "Hey, does anybody know a painter?" And yeah,
Hmm.
I knew, I do know two or three painters. So I shot him off an email today, this morning, with some recommendations as a painter. And that's what I want to be for people. I just want to be a great resource. To not only provide them with information, but coach and guide and be the consultant in the whole real estate space. I've had, yeah, I mean, actually, honestly, a pretty successful career so far. Really do enjoy it quite a bit. Have been able to help, a great number of, people on their buying and selling side. Um, what is, I think, just interesting is just it's a people business, and I love meeting the people, and finding out how I can help them.
So the things you said, number one, those that's huge value to your clients. Um, the reasons for doing it or impact, I totally align with because that's what got me 17 years ago into my retirement mode, which isn't doing nothing. You know that because you know me well enough to know I'm probably the busiest. If by most people's view of retirement, they would look at what I do and say, "Man, you've got 6 full-time jobs." No, I mean it's not about doing nothing. It's about living your ideal day every day, doing what you want, when you want, with who you want, where you want. There's other people who say you never work a day in your life if you do what you love. The point is you love people. I'm a Christian. I only have 2 jobs. One is to love God. The other is to love you. I don't have to like you. I don't even have to agree with you. I just have to love you. And then that gets manifest in so many different ways. And that's why you're part of my networking community. By the way, that's why you're a great member of our networking community, is because you have your sights on serving, because that's kind of one of the hallmarks of warrior networking is we're all about serving the people in our network. And by being a resource, and not just being the resource for what you monetize, but also being a resource for anything that you can help with. And you don't monetize, quote, your marketing experience today, but you've got over 10,000 hours of experience there, right? So you can provide great value to somebody who is in your community that maybe needs some help in that area. And it's not about them, you getting a bigger paycheck. It's really about you serving. The paycheck will come. I guarantee that.
Yep. Yep.
Good deeds, good, service do not come void. They don't come with a void. They come with a return. It just may not happen today. Investments are not a transaction. They are an investment, and the results come over time. Well, let's do this. I want to ask you one more question, and then we're going to go on a break, and I want to come back and land the plane. But I want to ask you this. If anything were possible, and you look at the overall impact that you get to the end of a road, if you will, what would that impact look like? What would you want? Because, by the way, everything is possible, so you get to speak it into existence.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because what I found with this industry is that, frankly, I feel like, and we all meet our maker, right? There's gonna be that
Hmm.
day, right?
Right.
But I think I could do this until the day I die,
Hmm.
and that's what I want to continue to do. I want to continue to help people, and it may be full time, it may be part time. Hopefully I'll
Sure.
get out there and take a few vacations and
Hmm.
travel and enjoy my cooking and all. Um, but I think I bring a great set of values and skill sets in with my marketing background, my contract experience. I have lived in major multiple cities here in the U.S., and so there is, I think, perspective on being able to help a lot of different people. I've had a lot of relo clients, that I've worked with here relocating to the DFW area. So I want to continue to do this, and ultimately, I love to expand my business. Maybe, I become a broker myself and have a team
Mhm.
underneath me, and be able to help other people from an industry standpoint. I've started to do that. I actually work with other industry leaders that are African American, and we formed this new organization called Brothers in Real Estate, BIRE, that we're getting off the ground here. And it's really a platform to support one another, to
Mhm.
lift one another, to grow one another, and to help each other, both from a business standpoint and from a value standpoint. And so those are the types of things that I want to expand into, and to continue to help communities with, some of the things that I do in terms of my volunteerism on food banks and
Mhm.
things, and just add more value to our area. And if I can do that, I'll feel really good about my life.
Well, that's beautiful. And all I can tell you is I love the fact that you're the brothers for whatever it is, that because you're providing some leadership to a community. I think when you face a common challenge, I don't care what it is, um, you can either do one of two things. You can marshal the zombies, if you will, and you can try to get people to wallow in that, and you can make a lot of money off of putting a group together that kind of all they are is victims, if you will, like you used the term before. It's not cliche, by the way, because that's really one of two ways. You see a challenge as an opportunity, or you see it as something that keeps you from, it's just, are you an entrepreneur or a entrepreneur? You want it and you're willing to, climb the mountain or get over the challenge, or are you not? Because success is defined that way. But getting a group of people together who have a common challenge, women's groups, men's groups, minority group, that is totally fine. Not that you're really defining yourself as being better than, or whatever, but just encouraging people. It's kind of aligning a group of people along a path that really will result in positive outcome, not only, I mean, for them, for each of them. And
Yeah.
that's brilliant. That's why you do things like you're describing, and I love it. That's why I do networking. I mean, not everybody, our Warrior Networking, Richardson Plano Networks, we're not um, we're not everybody's cup of tea. We're not everybody, and you won't be. But the thing is, if you have people that are really moving forward, those people will be attracted and they will continue with you, and you'll be stronger because of it. Well, anyway, let's take a break. We're going to hear the last outro, or last segment of this. We're going to, what I call the Land of Plains segment. We'll hear a little more Ricky Jean Wright, and we're going to be back. And Peter, when we come back, and give you short second to think about it, but when we come back, I want you to share, if we take away anything, in your mind, the most important thing you want us to take away, or you don't, not limited to one, you don't have to be, when we come back. So when we come back, that's where we're going to go.
Funny how wisdom and youth are always two different games. The years flew by so fast, is the common human complaint. The memories in our minds turn to diamonds in our soul, and by the grace of God.
All right, Peter, we are back, and it's been a great talk. Awesome. I'm glad we made this happen. It's incredible. I hope we'll get your story, your message, your vision out there, because I think it's well worth hearing. Okay, so as I said before we start, if we take away anything from all this, we've covered a lot of ground here, and a lot of warrior value, a lot of warrior nuggets, as I call them. If we take away anything, what do you want to make sure we take away?
Yeah, so I think about my life and experience. There are really three things that I would state.
Okay.
It's hard work, resilience, and a sense of service. Those are the three things that really come to mind, and they almost kind of work in conjunction with each other. But yeah, if you look across my career, the challenges that you face, actually in life and career, if I could, the one big thing, and I talk to my kids about this, I talk to, young people about it, et cetera, is you got to have a sense of resilience because there will be challenges that are thrown at you. You've got to face them and you've got to work through them. And maybe, not all challenges will have a positive outcome, but if they don't, have the resilience to be able to get up the next day and figure it out, and work through that challenge and put yourself on a better path. And I think that everybody would benefit from that. Particularly, like I said, I try and impart that, in younger people as they grow, both personally and professionally, because that will do them well, going forward. I think hard work, again, I look back at my dad and, think about, what he had to overcome and the work that he put in to put me in a position to be successful in life. So that's
Hmm.
that hard work, certainly. And then, the other that I would say is I do feel a sense of service to my clients, my friends, my family, and my community. And I try to do that, in some way or shape or form over the course of every day. And so those are, I guess, sort of the three guiding principles and things that I think about that have made me successful as a person and as a professional.
Well, I love it starting with hard work because, those of us have a little more journey behind us. And I also love the fact that you want to teach that to the next generation because, especially through whether you talk about the zombie apocalypse or COVID, as I call it, or you see, there's, I think it's Farmers Insurance. It says, we've been there, we've seen some things, so we know some things. The thing is, the resilience part, you made it through. You can look back and you can say, and you can see how, in retrospect, also how your father powered through the challenges at his thing. And so, if we can leave that as warriors for the next generation and for those that are on the path with us today, parallel, that's one of the goals. That's the one of the goals of this podcast. Really, is to, we're all warriors on the journey, being resilient, working hard, and then just really focusing on others and realizing that, life is a team sport. The only thing you can take into eternity is other people. And so having an impact and leaving that kind of legacy is such a powerful thing as warriors for us to remember. Well, Peter, it's come to a close here. I've got to ask you one more thing. You're on the Be Connected platform? Kudos, congratulations. We did this live today, which is good, and you jumped in there and made an effort to get things done, and so I'm proud of you for that. But tell me, other than on this platform, which we can go to Peter Wright, which is relatively common, but I don't know if there's others, but there's a Eugene Wright, I know that, but there's, they can find you here or how else do we stay in touch?
Yeah, thanks. And just thank you for the opportunity. It's great to have had this today. Yeah, I mean, if people want to reach out to me, immediately, it's peter.wright at C21 Bowman, BOWMAN.com. So it's peter.wright at C21Bowman.com. That's my email address. The other way that probably is easy to connect with me is both on Facebook and Instagram. I have my business pages, and it's the right place DFW.
Okay.
So that's my brand.
Okay,
Tried to
great.
play off the last name, so it's WRIGHT. So the right place DFW. Both on Facebook and Instagram. That's my
Mhm.
platform. Would love for you guys to go check me out, to join me. So love a follow or a like. That would be great. I post a lot of information about the industry and also about who I am there. So you'll get to know me a little bit better. in both of those platforms. So either of those ways would be great ways of staying connected. But certainly, it was a great opportunity today to talk about the topics we talked about, and I wish everybody good luck in the future.
Well, Peter, I appreciate you, and thank you for serving our warrior community, both here in Dallas and now globally, in the 115 countries that we're part of here in the Be Connected platform. And I also want to say that I do want to make sure that I'll get all of those things in the show notes. So anybody listening to this on the podcast or on the YouTube channel or whatever, like I said, Be Connected, you can find everything you need to get in touch with Peter on there on his profile. But if you're listening to this on another platform, I'll do my best to get those in the show notes. So if you can just email those to me, that would be great. Make sure I got the right stuff, the right DFW choice, whatever it is. I'll make sure we get that in there. So anyway, well, thanks for sharing again. And for those listening to this, we'll be back next week for another episode of Warrior versus Zombie. And by the way, we're starting another podcast called Triggered by Warrior versus Zombie, where we'll dive into some of these topics, maybe real estate, maybe other things, and get onto topics and bring in some of our warrior guests that have been with us on Warrior versus Zombie to dive deeper into the things that they're really focused on these days. So with that, let's hear the final outro of It's Not the Getting There by Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll be back next week with Warrior versus Zombie.
It's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know.